This is the first device to be approved by the FDA to help people with restless legs sleep better. And that's the entire purpose of this. It was such an unusual application of the FDA that we went through a process called the de novo process, and that's just fancy for new, because they had no pigeonhole to put it into. So we went through a trial process where we submitted clinical trials. They said, we don't have a place to put you. We're going to have to start from scratch with you. And over about 5 years, we got approved by the FDA. It took a long, long time. We are now approved. And the approval reads, the purpose of the Relaxis device is to improve the quality of sleep in patients with primary, that's not pregnant, not on dialysis, other sorts of things, restless leg syndrome, through the use of vibratory counterstimulation. So we've met all the words, vibration, counterstimulation, we know all the words. To date, we've published 4 journal articles that are easily available. They're free. The cool thing about medical journals, many of them now, is you can get the article downloaded without having to own the journal. So if you go to Google Dove Press, you'll get something. If you do Google Burbank, you'll get that list right there. Then you push a button and the PDFs come down to your computer. So you can read our papers. The first 2, Part 1, pooled analysis of 2 trials, and Part 2 are the most important. The other 2 parts are kind of technical, but they were important for us to round out that we'd done a quality job in the trials. Part 1, many pages, graphs, charts, boils down to just one finding. We were twice as good at improving sleep as the shams were. And remember, the shams were things that people thought might work. Half the group got rheostat-controlled light, half got a rheostat-controlled sound. Those 2 shams performed about the same, and our device was better than the shams. And so that's how one tests drugs, that's how one tests devices. Are you better than a comparison? Because people with phenomena in their brain, depression, anxiety, restless leg syndrome, we are responsive to anything you give us to say it's going to help us. If you look at the drug trials, and I didn't do this lecture, I didn't do the slide here, but if you look at drug trials over a 12-week period of the trial, 75% of the benefit of the drug comes from being in the trial, and 25% comes from the drug. So that all treatments for the restless leg syndrome have a very large placebo effect. And in fact, if the study doesn't have that, then the study is probably not done right. That is, everyone got the code, they broke the code, and they knew what the placebo was. And that's one of the articles. How do you figure what the other part 2, and this was to me was absolutely astounding. I did not expect this at all. There's a methodology to compare. I'll back up. A psychology PhD student, when he finished his work about 30 years ago, was irritated that people said psychotherapy didn't help, because he'd gone through psychotherapy during his PhD program, and he thought it helped him. So he said, well, I don't think this is right. This study says yes, this study says no. He said, we need to be able to examine studies as the subjects, not just people. So most clinical trials, each person is an individual element of the trial. In meta-analysis, a whole trial is the subject. And so he devised what became a boom industry because it has such power to it. So one can compare trials. So I compared our 2 trials with all of the published drug trials that had been approved by the FDA to see how well we improve sleep versus the drugs approved by the FDA. And the part that was astounding to me is that we have almost exactly the same improvement with no drug-like side effects. So we were substantially better than our placebos, which we compared to, and we're about the same as, within measurement error, as drugs used for restless leg syndrome. A complete surprise to me. Yes?
Were you able to do it as a double-blind study? I mean,
We ran our 2 studies as double-blind, and we measured blindness. So we said afterwards to the patient, what do you think you got? Well, I got X, Y, Z. And they couldn't guess well. We asked the doctors, what do you think that they got? The doctors couldn't guess well. So on our studies, we blinded well, and we measured blinding. This article came out at the end of last year. No, it came out at the start of this year. And it poorly done study, but what it is the beginning of a logjam break which is maybe sensory inputs are of value in treating restless leg syndrome, because these folks did various measurements, short-term measurements, and they thought and had some information to show that sensory input at the time of an attack diminishes the intensity of the attack. They didn't call it counterstimulation, but that's what they did. So this to me is the beginning of other folks saying these ideas may be beneficial, and these are not drug ideas, because up until now all the ideas have been drug ideas. So without the Relaxis pad, this is what happens. When you have an attack, dysphoric, and dysphoria just means ugh. Okay, it's not a very specific thing. Pain's kind of specific. I like dysphoria because it means I'm kind of I hate awful. And then when you're asleep or about to go to sleep, all the normal sensations you have are really gone. You're not aware of your feet. You're not aware of anything. But you're aware of this sensory nightmare you're having as this dysphoria. If you get up and walk around, you now have foot sensations, ankle sensations, knee sensations. You got all kinds of sensations going on, and you can break an attack. The dysphoria diminishes and goes away when I walk down and get orange juice. But it's incompatible with sleep to get up and walk around. And there you are, free of restless leg syndrome sensations, looking at your bed. So, with Relaxis, which is this, it's a foamy thing with 6 motors that are powered, the control of the power is done by the patient. Some folks are a number 2, some folks are a number 10, and wish we had an 11. So different people find different levels of vibration comfortable. And as I said, 10% say, not for me. This is not for me. Yes, ma'am.
I have it in arms and legs. How does it
We will, this is our first simplistic device. It'll handle most people, but does not handle being in a car well, does not handle being in an airplane, doesn't handle arms. We will have ones that wrap around and wiggle, so you can actually put it on, okay? This device will come in 2 flavors. The original flavor was plug it in the wall and power it. The next flavor was to power it from a battery within this control device here. And once you control it by a battery, not by plug-in, you could be the Michelin man. You could have them on your arms and legs and walk around and be happy as a lark. Just buzz, 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 buzz. People might point at you and laugh, but you'd be pain-free, discomfort-free. Yeah. Well, last question. Yeah.
Okay, you're talking about it only handles for primary RLS.
We have no idea about pregnant women, people during dialysis. We will study that as time goes by. We need to know that. These are important subsets. That it'll take us a year or 2 to do that. They're our next challenge. So we started with primary in order to compare our trials with drug trials. That's what they did on their trials. We wanted to know how we're doing in relation to what was then the gold standard. Well, it's off-label. But when I was an intern, people came in the hospital with seizures from alcohol withdrawal. I gave them Valium. There was nothing on the Valium box that said Valium's okay for that. It worked much better than barbiturates and was much safer. So people use off-label items, drugs, devices all the time. It's the doctor's decision as to what to do for that patient then. Yes, ma'am?
How would your machine work? My RLS will start as early as 1 in the afternoon, and does that mean I have to go to bed then?
No. When I first started using this, I thought of it as a war. Okay, I had a war going on. So I'd put it on my legs, and I go, oh God, I have to stand up. And then I'd focus on the vibration, and I go, maybe I don't. And then oh no, because it comes in waves. These attacks they're not just continuous. No, I'm able to focus on that vibration. And then pretty soon, the vibration was it. Okay, so my sense was over a very short period of time for me, 10 minutes maybe, I had a tool that allowed me to lie still and tolerate the discomfort. Before that, I could not lie still. I had to bend my legs, bend my feet, grab this, stand up. And now I had something else that I could. Oh yeah, that's my number. Maybe I have to stand. No. I think I can be still. And then it would fade some, and then it would come. Then the attack would come back again. I go, I think I'm on top of it. I think. And then pretty soon, because I used it at night, I was gone. I was gone, sound asleep. The thing, right now, it's programmed for a half an hour, and then it turns off over about 5 minutes. So it goes along, then it ramps down. It ramps down for the same reason that if you turned off the fan in my room at night, I'd know that. When the car stops when I was a baby, I'm awake. Okay, so we did not want the vibration to just abruptly stop. We wanted it to ease down so you would not know it was stopping.
But if you have it during the day,
I think you lie down and use it and make the stuff go away. That's what I'd imagine doing. Yeah.
Is RLS age-related?
It appears the prevalence and frequency is higher in the population as you get older. There's sort of a peak for young kids, and then it gets older. It gets higher from the 30s on. The older you get, everything goes in your life, and this is one of them. Okay, so this.
I've only noticed it the last 3 years.
If I drew a graph, it'd look like this by age. Okay, it goes up by age.
I guess I just got started early, right?
Well, there's an ongoing debate of it was called growing pains with another child. Were growing pains this phenomena? And I think for me they were. I think I had a substantial amount when I was a kid during periods of times, and then I had a young adulthood. I didn't think I had this very much, and then in my 40s, and I just thought I was getting old. And I was watching TV one day, okay, and I said, honey, I got that. Okay, so I'm a physician trained in a whole bunch of stuff. I was trained in sleep medicine by the father of sleep medicine. This was not a phenomena well known until drug companies put this on television. So there's a huge benefit of that is the population got to go, oh, I'm not going crazy. This isn't multiple sclerosis striking. This is it's awful, but it's none of those awful things. It's that awful thing. So the education came with the introduction of Parkinsonian drugs repositioned towards restless leg syndrome. Huge number of ads are put on the airways. So, like the other slide, when you're asleep, yeah.
What about if you if you have any experience with people who have been taking medication
Yes.
for RLS
Yes.
and they stop when they start with this?
We included about half in our trial that were on drugs, and all that they had to do is not change their dosage during our trial. So we took them in. If they were on drugs and were above a 15, that meant the drugs weren't solving the problem, okay, to some extent. So we had about half that came in on drugs and stayed on their dosage through our trial. We had half who'd never been on a drug ever, or had been on a drug and stopped. And we looked at it, a subset analysis was there was no difference. Each group benefited the same amount. So if someone's on medication and they think that they are not controlled, or they still have attacks at night, then they would benefit as well as someone who was not on drugs. So that's what we know right now. Okay. So during an attack with this device, dysphoria goes up, normal sensations come down, and you start the event just like you did before you bought this thing. What happens is, as the vibration becomes in your consciousness, it begins to be about as strong an influence as the dysphoria. You now have two things going on. You've paired a nice thing with an awful thing, and you can tolerate that pairing. And if that keeps going on, the leg vibrations end up emulating standing up, but you're sound asleep in bed. So, vibration takes the place of standing and walking. That's our goal. We know most people can break an attack by standing and walking, but then they lose sleep. And then when they go back to bed again, the attack comes back in again. So that was our goal. If it's pleasant, most folks can do that, stay in bed and fall back to sleep or go to sleep. So, a little bit dramatic, but I kind of searched the internet for how did I want to. If I had one, I like pictures and imageries. I want something that thing is attacking, and I wanted something you could do during an attack to let you stay in bed. That's the goal.
Maybe he's standing up. No.
I don't have the best picture yet. I may want to have him kind of poking with that with his almost out cold. So that's it.